Hi, my name is Ilya, and in this video, we're going to be doing actually more than we talk. And what I mean by this is we will be building an automated ClickUp system together with you. That's going to be a meeting scheduling system. So the first part of the video, I want to show you how that system actually works and what's going to be the end result. And during the second part of this video, we're going to actually dive into step by step and build this system together. So again, I'm not going to hold anything from you. I'm going to just follow the steps that I will do to build this system. We're going to build it together. We're going to test it together. And by the end of this call, hopefully, if you follow the steps from the other side of the screen, you can have similar system to what I have in place here. All right, so let me show you how that works now. By the way, if you are interested to start using this system without spending time to set it up from scratch, check the link or click the button below this video, and I can share with you full template and all the things that we're going to be building in this video, so you can just set them up in your ClickUp, in your Make account, connect and enter your credentials, and start using this system. So if you're interested, click the link or button below this video, and let's keep going with the setup. This meeting scheduling automated system comes from a very basic pain problem that many of us have. And this is when we need to schedule a meeting with someone on a regular basis. Let's say in my example that I'm going to show you now, it's going to be an interview, right? Whether it's an applicant who is applying to our program, maybe it's a client, maybe someone else, doesn't really matter. It's going to be an interview that happens regularly on a weekly basis. I need to schedule time with people, and I don't want to send that scheduling link manually to them every single time. I don't want to follow up with them, again, writing emails from scratch manually every time. And when they actually schedule that session, I want to have that inside my ClickUp as well. So again, that whole system that we're going to be building comes from this pain point, and let me show you how that works now. Right, in our example, we have our meetings list in ClickUp that you can see over here, and you have every single interview that is a separate task in ClickUp, which is basically a separate deliverable for this small process that we have in place. This meetings or this interviews move through different stages. You can see not scheduled, invited, scheduled, canceled, and completed, basically telling us where that interview is throughout the process. Now we can see some of them are already processed. Let's just take an example, this Jamie Patel interview. All right, so I have the due date for myself for today, which means I need to send them an invitation and invite them to the interview. So the way it works, we just simply need to click a checkbox or a custom field over here. It's going to update this record in ClickUp, move it to the invited stage, and send an interview link, a Calendly link that we're going to be using for scheduling our session. You can see it over here. Now again, if I go to my inbox in here, I'm going to actually clean this up because that was from my previous testing. I'm going to open this new record or this new email from here. You can see again, the email is relatively simple, so you can adjust it for your specific needs, but it gives us the calendar link, which is specific to this record from which we sent it. So if I click this, again, the next thing is I want to my records or my time to actually get recorded back into ClickUp. But for a moment, let's say that I forgot to schedule, right? I received that email, and as many people, I forgot to schedule. So let's just close this thing, go from here. I'm going to remove this from my inbox. I'm going to go back here, and you can see over here at the bottom, it says date and time last invite sent, which tells us when we send that invite the last time. So if I see I sent it 1 minute ago, maybe I sent it a day ago, maybe I sent it a month ago. In this example, I can just click the same drop down, change it to send, and it should send me one more time the same scheduling link. So if I go back to my inbox here, I refresh the page, you can see the new email appearing over here. I'm going to use this link this time, and I'm going to actually schedule something for us. So I'll go to the 28th. I'm going to put the 9 a.m. I'm going to say next. Here I'm going to need to put my name and email. And for this example, it's going to be Jamie Patel. So I'm going to just put Jamie. This is going to be my email, Ilya plus Jamie. All right, and at this point, we're going to click on schedule the event. Now, because this link that was sent to this person was very specific to our ClickUp record in here, you can see that momentarily that record was moved to schedule. So now not only we don't need to go into our inbox and check if that person scheduled it, but our automation and our system actually moves that record throughout the process and moves it to the correct stage in here, which is schedule. Now, if I were to go and open this record, one of the custom fields that we have says date and time scheduled, which means this is the actual date and time of the interview with Jamie Patel. And this way I can go to my calendar and again, take that link to join the session from there. Now, what can happen from this moment on is that the person who scheduled the session can either cancel or can show up. Now, if they show up, we simply move that record into completed stage. If they cancel, again, I also want the system to process that. So if we go back into my inbox, I probably have received an invitation, something like this. Again, this is for Google Calendar specifically, but if that person says, no, I don't want to join this session, or I don't like this time anymore, what should happen is we should go back into our ClickUp and that record should automatically get moved into the canceled stage over here. Now let me refresh the page because sometimes it takes a second to process. But now, as you can see over here, interview with Jamie Patel is now updated to the canceled stage. I am assigned to this task. I have the due date for today so that I know I need to pay attention to this task. And again, from this moment on, I can send a follow-up email. This can be more personalized and I can probably do this manually just to make sure that again, they actually schedule time or we reschedule the time for them. And again, if the session was completed successful, I can easily move them into the completed stage over here. Now, this is the simple version, but I want us to again, try and build this together with you from scratch. Now I'm going to remove this from my ClickUp account and we're going to start building ClickUp workspace. Then we're going to move into building and connecting our ClickUp with Calendly using make.com. And again, all of that we're going to do together during this video. So with all that said, let's now start building this from scratch. By the way, everything we're going to be discussing and doing in this video, you can get access to all the templates and all the things that we've built together with you on this video by using the link and button down below. So again, if you want to have access, you'll be able to import it into your ClickUp and make account, set up these things without going through the step-by-step process, and again, start adjusting it and using it for your specific use case. So if you're interested, click the link down below, fill out the form, and let's keep going with the rest of the video. Before we dive into building all this, and I'm going to share my screen and actually build this together with you, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what tools we're going to be using. So the number one, we're going to be using ClickUp as our single source of truth platform here, right? This is where data is going to live. This is when we see information about all the meetings or all the interviews in this specific example for this automated system. The second part is going to be our make.com, which will be our automation platform, which allow us to move data between Calendly and ClickUp, automatically update ClickUp tasks, right? Update the custom fields and send those emails using Gmail. And the third thing is going to be Calendly, obviously for people to actually schedule session with me, just as you saw in that demo. So we're going to be using Calendly free account. Again, for make.com, free account might be enough as well. And for ClickUp, I think you should be good enough with a free account as well. If you have a paid version, that obviously is going to be even better, because sometimes you might find some unexpected limitations with these tools on free plans. All right, with all that said, let me share my screen and let's dive step by step and go through building this system together. We're going to start with our ClickUp part, right? Because ClickUp basically becomes this foundation, and this is where the data is going to live. And I'm going to create one of the spaces, which is going to be called meeting scheduling system. Again, you can create it from scratch, or maybe you can use one of the existing spaces that you already have inside your ClickUp account. The next thing, I'm going to add an item, which is going to be a list. If you create that space from scratch, you're probably going to already have a list, so you can just rename it. I'm going to call this thing meetings, right? So these are going to be meetings that we will be tracking inside this list. Now, because this is a standard list, it adds standard statuses as well as a standard custom field. So what we need to do, we need to click on the three dots and we need to go into our task statuses. Now in here, I want to update the statuses so that they match the process that I want to follow with these meetings. I'm going to use custom statuses and over here you can change them. So the first one is going to be not scheduled, right? This is where the meeting are going to appear when we create the task, and they will tell us that, hey, Ilya, you actually need to send invitation to that person. The next thing is going to be scheduled, obviously. This is when the person actually schedules the call, and the other one is going to be canceled. This is what I showed you of how the system worked previously. All right, I'm going to change the colors here just to make it a little bit prettier. Let's say invited is going to be green, scheduled blue or purple, and cancel is going to be whatever that color is. We're going to click on apply changes, and now we can see over here the statuses changed automatically. Actually, in this specific example, I prefer to use the board view. So I'm going to swipe them and put the board view as the first view here, right, as the main view. And then again, it just shows it more nicely on how every meeting is going to follow this process outlined here. So let's just create our first meeting, our first interview. I'm going to call it interview with, let's say, with Jamie. Let's take this example. One of the things that we're missing at this point of time is having more information about the meeting itself. So we don't really know what's the email of the person whom we want to invite. We don't really know when we sent. We don't have any buttons to send the email. So this is what we're going to be creating now, which is called custom fields. We're going to go and we will click the 3 dots next to the list name, right? So in my example, it's meetings. In your example, it can be something else, whatever the name you came up with. And we're going to select the custom fields option. This will open the custom field manager. And from here, I'm going to click on create a new field. Now let's go through the fields that we'll need here. The first one and the most obvious one, we need to keep track of the email of the person whom we're inviting to this interview. So I'm going to click an email and I'm going to just put the email address, right? Let it be like that. We're going to click create. Add exist. Oh, okay, so it asks me to add an existing custom field because I previously used it. So again, in your example, when you click on create new, it's just going to create it from scratch, but that's going to be just same custom field as you can see over here with the email custom field type. Right. The next thing that we need to do is we need to understand when did we last send that email, right? This is going to be a date field, and in here this will be a date and time invite last sent, which means when did we last send link to that specific person, so that I can look at this date and see if it happened a week ago and I need to follow up with this person, or if it happened today and I just need to wait for a couple of days before I follow up. So that's going to be the date field. The next thing is actually something that I missed, is going to be a drop down, which is how do we send that email now, right? So what's the trigger for us sending that email? And that's going to be a drop down field, which we will call send email invitation. That email invitation is going to contain just one option, which is going to be send in the dropdown, and I'm going to click on create. All right, and the last field, as the last part of the testing, is when the call is scheduled. Now, what is the date and time of that scheduled session? And this is why we're going to create one more date field. We're going to call it date and time scheduled. Right, so that whenever we have that invitation or whenever the person schedules the call, we actually see, I'm going to create a duplicate, right? So that's going to be date and time scheduled. Perfect. Now, if you have this custom fields created, what I like to do is I like to reorder them just to give them the right order. I would prefer to have the send email invitation button at the top, my email address next, date and time invite last sent third, and then the last one will be when the call is actually scheduled. If that's the right order, by the way, if you don't have this in here, you might need to go to your workspace settings, click on settings, go to your app center, and then in the custom fields here, if you type in custom fields, you'll be able to find manually reorder, and you just need to enable that option. All right, for us, it's available already. So we reorder this custom fields. They now show up inside our task here. Perfect. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to kind of change this view slightly so it shows me more information instead of just showing me the name. So in ClickUp, what you can do, you can go to the settings of the board view. Make sure you have board view selected at the top. Go to the settings, customize your view, and here in the fields, you can actually uncheck the ones that we do not need. So we will keep assignee and the date, the due date, and here I want to add the sent email invitation, and I also want to add date and time invite last sent. So this way, let's actually add one more field, which is the email address, right? So we can see which email address we added in here. Right, so you can see now these items are empty. So in order for us to test this record, we're gonna need to add this email address. So let me just add Ilya plus Jamie. Add system integrators. Code. Perfect. All right, this is the button. Now you can see I can click on it and I can trigger my automation. And this is going to be the date that will be filled out automatically by make.com scenario. So at this point, we are actually ready with our ClickUp structure. So this is pretty much it. We have our statuses outlined, our custom fields in place. So now it's actually a point where we're going to build the actual automation to send the first email, right? Because the first thing for us is going to be able to click the button for the automation to move it to the invited status or the stage, and also send that automated email. So now let's actually do this. So the first thing we need to do is actually set up a trigger inside ClickUp. ClickUp. So I want us first to get ready with everything in ClickUp, and then we're gonna go into make.com and set up automation there. So we're gonna go in here, we're gonna click on the automations at the right top corner. You're gonna click on manage automations, probably we're gonna have none. So we're gonna click on add new automation. Now, the trigger for us, as we discussed and as we tested previously, is gonna be when the custom field, so custom field changes, and that's gonna be the send email invitation dropdown here. So when it changes from any value to send, then we need to do our action to complete our action. And our action is actually gonna be call a webhook. Now, the reason why it's called webhook, because it's gonna move the data and give make.com more information and more context on from where we triggered that specific action, right? So that make.com understands which task or for which email we need to send that email invitation. And I'm going to show you how that looks in a second. As soon as you selected the call webhook here, we're going to select webhook, and here you just need to create a new webhook. Now this one can be named whatever you want. I like most of the time name them by explaining the trigger and then the action. So for the webhook, that's going to be the custom field changes, right? And that's going to result in us triggering make.com. Perfect. Again, this can have better explanation. You can even add the description if you'd like. But for now, for the development purposes, that's more than enough. Over here in the URL, we're going to need to include the webhook URL, which we're going to now wrap in make.com. And again, you don't need to worry about this part of the webhook. So now let's go into our make.com and actually set things up from there, because this is more or less parallel step where we need to set up ClickUp at the same time setting up our make.com. So let's open make.com. Again, if you don't have an account, you can register a free one. They're going to give you some operations or some credits for free, so you can build this and test this in there. If you have a paid version of the account, that's even better. That will give you more functionalities here. We're going to go into scenarios here. I'm going to click on create new scenarios. Now, obviously, I have some of the scenarios already existing from different automations. You might not have any of them, so you'll have just an empty list there. All right, as soon as we open this, it's going to first of all give it a name of the new scenario. Also in here, it's going to ask us what's the trigger. And again, because we're sending the trigger as the webhook from ClickUp, here we're going to select the webhook as well. So we're going to select the webhook option here. Make sure not to select the custom mail hook, because that's slightly different. We're going to click custom webhook. And here I'm going to click on add a new webhook. Again, you can call it whatever you want, really. What I like to do, again, if you give it a name like this in ClickUp, I would just copy paste it in make.com and click on save. Here, now as soon as you have it, you're going to just need to copy this link. You can click on copy address to clipboard, go back to ClickUp and paste that link in here. As soon as you have this, you're good to go and to click create webhook in ClickUp, and your automation here is almost ready. The only last step that we're gonna add here is, in addition to sending the webhook, we also want to remove the value from this field. This way, when you click on send, it kind of removes that value immediately, and you can click send one more time and basically resend the same email notification. So here we're gonna click on a new action. We're going to click on custom field, set custom field. That's going to be a send email invitation, and you just need to keep it empty. I'm going to click on create. Now, by the way, over here in the description, what I like to do is I like to put the same description as you put in the webhook, right? You can even call it something like ClickUp. I like to give it names with numbers, so it's easier to understand which one goes after the other one. So ClickUp 10, custom field changes, triggering make.com. Let's even give more description to send email invitation. Perfect. So that's more than enough. We're going to click on create, and now you have your active automation available in ClickUp. Perfect. Now let's go back into make.com. Now, as we created this, I want to make sure that you click on save, and you also save your new scenario. Now here at the top left corner, best practice for me is always to rename the scenarios from the very beginning. So what I would do, I would call this make 10, and I would give it the same name as we used previously. Custom field changes, I would even add something like ClickUp custom field changes, triggering. Here we can describe the action, and we can say send email invitation with Calendly link. All right, you're just explaining and kind of, again, adding this name in here to make sure that whenever you come back here in a week, in 2 weeks, you understand clearly what's happening within this scenario. So again, if you want to explain it a little bit more, you can. If you want to keep it shorter, you can do that as well. Now, as we added this link over here, the next step for us is to actually test this connection, right? Because we set up automation on our ClickUp side. We now have our webhook set up inside make.com. So now let's test and actually make sure it works. In order for you to test, the only thing we need to do, we need to click on run once on make first, go back into our ClickUp, and now actually test the step which going to trigger. So in our example, it's going to be changing this value to send. So if I click on send here and I go back to make.com, you can see over here, it gives me an answer and it tells me this is the webhook that we received. This is the trigger that we received from ClickUp. You can see over here, it gives me the interview with Jamie, the exact name that I have for my task here. It also will give you the task ID and many more information about the task that comes from ClickUp. Again, we are not necessarily going to use that, but this is what ClickUp returns you as part of that webhook. So now the connection is successful and we can keep going and setting up our make.com side of things to actually send that email with the Calendly link to the person to whom we're sending the invitation. Let's now keep building our make integration here. So make scenario. So we named it as make 10. Now we tested that the trigger works from ClickUp and it actually triggers make.com. And make sure that you test this before moving ahead with any other steps. Otherwise, it's not going to work. As we have the first trigger set up, the next thing we want to do is now we want to send that email. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a new step. The second step in this automation, I want to actually get a task. The reason why is because this information that's returned over here doesn't actually give me any information about the email address of the recipient of whom I want to invite to the interview. So this is why we're going to go ahead and use the get a task module from ClickUp. Make sure that, again, if you don't have any connection here, you just need to click on add connection, save, and it's going to open a new window requesting you to put in your email address and your password. As soon as you put that in, you should be good to go and setting up this step as I show you here. The map or select, make sure that you have the map option here, which means we're not selecting the same record over and over again. We're actually picking the record from the previous step over here. So I'm going to click on map, and when you click on the task ID here, you're going to see a lot of values, right? The main one that we need to look for is the ID. It's going to be under the payload, right? And it's going to show ID. Now, an easy option for you to find this record, this option, after you tested it the way I showed you, is to actually open your ClickUp task and copy the ID or this thing that goes up to T /, copy this value, which is the task ID, go back to make, and then when you're searching for the value, paste that value in there. And again, it's going to show you the exact variable, right? Variable that you're going to need to use in this scenario. So again, that's in our case is going to be payload ID. I'm going to click on save. Whenever we're adding new steps in make.com scenario, we're going to retest it to make sure that nothing breaks. In order to retest, you don't need to go back to ClickUp, trigger it one more time. You can just click on this little arrow next to run once, scenario run, select the previous scenario run, click on run once, and now it's going to populate. It's going to complete basically the same request one more time, give you the same data, and it's going to retrieve the information about the task. Now this time, if you open this answer, you can see that it gave us actually much more information. Now if you open the custom fields here, expand it, you're going to see the email address, which we're going to be using to send the email to. All right, so at this point, now we know to whom we're sending the email. So now let's actually send it. We're going to go and add a new step. In my example, I'm going to be using Gmail. If you're using Outlook, you can use an Outlook module here. It's going to be almost the same thing. We're going to just click on send an email. Now, again, the same thing happens here. If you don't have your connection yet, it will require you to add one. So you click on add, sign in with Google. Again, go through the process of signing in and following those steps. As soon as you're done, it should take you back to this window here. Now, the question that we want to answer is to whom we're sending this email. And this is exactly what you have here, recipient email address. This is going to come, as I said, from one of the custom fields that we set up together with you in ClickUp. So if I go down here and if I scroll to my email address, you can see that under custom fields, I have my email address, which again on the right populates Ilya plus Jamie. So I'm going to populate it here. By the way, to make it easier, you can even type it here, and I would go and say email address. Right, and it can populate it like this, so it might be even easier to find it this way. Now, as we populated this value here, again, make sure that you include the right value, email address. We're gonna add the subject, and let's just add a simple subject and say schedule interview with Ilya. All right. The body type here, we're going to select raw HTML, which is, we can just paste a simple text in here. It's just much easier to use it. I'm going to show you how to use it quickly. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to my ChatGPT here, and I'm going to just have a simple email that I used previously. I'm going to just copy paste it from here, go back to my content, and just paste that text in there. Now you can see that it gives us the first name. In this example, we're not using the first name, so we're just going to be saying, hi, I hope you're doing well. If you'd like to use the first name, you're going to need to pass that parameter the same way you use the email address. So there has to be a separate custom field created, and then when you fill it out, you're going to be able to put it in here the same way we did with the email address, right? I'm going to say hi, all these things, and I'm going to say this is the Calendly link below, which we're going to fill in just a second. Looking forward to connecting with you. All right. The only thing, because this is a raw HTML, and if you're doing this with me in Gmail, you're going to need to put the line breaks here. And the line breaks work like this. You're going to just need to put it like this. So this is BR in this bracket. You're going to just copy and put it after each line break that you want to have in the email so that it looks better. Again, it's not really needed if you don't care about how that looks, but I like it more with the line break. So I'm going to put it like this. Looking forward to connecting. Line break, line break, line break. So this way, when you see the email, and I'm going to show you how that looks, it looks much nicer than without these things. All right, so you don't need really to worry. If you're using the same module, raw HTML is fine. If you don't want to overcomplicate it for now, just remove these tags and leave it as a simple text. You can modify it later on. Even with your ChatGPT, you can just ask it to make it a little bit nicer in HTML. All right, so with this, we don't have any attachments. The only thing we're missing here is now the Calendly link. So now let's go into Calendly and set this up. So let me open this thing. Again, you can use a simple free Calendly account. I'm actually using a free one. Maybe you have an upgraded version, that's even better. But in either option, you should be able to set this up. So if we go to scheduling, I have a new event created, which is going to be a 30-minute meeting. If you want to create a new event, again, I don't need to to tell you how to do this. Just follow the steps, create one-on-one, group interview, whatever that is. What we need to do is we need to copy the link to the meeting or to the scheduling event that you want to use in this example. So I'm going to just copy this link, go back to my make scenario, and paste this link over there. What I also need to do, and again, because this is just a simple link to Calendly, when person schedules the event, our automation will not know which task it refers to. This is why we need to add this step in here and this component in here. What I mean is, as you pasted this link, at the end of the Calendly link, add a question mark and say UTM_term equals, and then paste the value of the task ID. Now, this is extremely important because if you don't do this step, Calendly and Make.com will not know which ClickUp task to update after someone scheduled the session, and they will not do this. So again, in this example, you need to add this UTM term. The reason we're using UTM term, you might have heard of it in marketing. This is just one of the easiest versions and simplest versions for us to pass a parameter into Calendly so that we can retrieve it from the other end when the person actually schedules something. So again, you can use either term, you can use any UTM parameter. In this example, just to keep it simple, let's use UTM term. As soon as you fill this out and you pasted the right task ID, right, you include it in here, make sure there are no spaces in here, that it is all, again, without any spaces. You click on save, and now we're going to test how that works. So I'm going to go back in here, click on this arrow, select run once, and let's see how that works. All right, so you can see we retrieved the task, and now it sent the message. So if I go back to my email. All right, great. So I'm gonna close this. You can see right now, this is how it looks with line breaks, right? So it breaks the line, moves it to the next line. If you didn't include those HTML tags, it would just be a solid piece of text. So without any line breaks. So it might be a little bit hard to read. To begin with, you can even do this without line breaks. But the main thing here is the calendar link. So this is the calendar link. This is how it looks. I'm gonna click that link here. By the way, with HTML, you can even do hyperlinks, and you can include this, for example, link below, and instead of adding this link here or link here, you can have hypertext or hyperlink in here with the word below, or text here, whatever makes sense. Again, that can be done with more complex HTML code. For now, we just want to keep it simple, so we included a link here. Now we have the Calendly. Our automation works. The last thing before testing the Calendly and setting up Calendly automation with the Make, we want to go back to our Make 10 integration that we built. First of all, we want to make sure we save it. And the last piece that we want to add here is we want to make sure we update the task, and we're going to added a task with custom fields, because we want to update the custom fields inside our ClickUp task so that we know when was the last time that we sent that invite, right? So that again, later on we can follow up with that person. So whenever you do this, it's going to ask you for the workspace. It's going to ask you for the space. And by the way, the name of this module, edit a task with custom field, make sure that you select this one, because if you select an advanced version, it's going to be slightly more complex to set it up. So make sure you select this module here. I'm going to select, it's going to ask you for the folder. Also going to ask you for the list. All right, so the task ID, now over here, it asks us to select one. We're going to check this checkbox to map. And then we're going to select the task ID from the previous step. We're going to scroll down, and now it's going to show you all the custom fields that task has. So first of all, the status is here. We're going to be able to update the status. So let's say as soon as the invite is sent, from the not scheduled, we want to move it to invited. So that's going to be the status. The due date, let's just say that, when we send the invite, the next time we want to revisit this task and maybe follow up with that person is going to be in three days, right? So what we will do in ClickUp, in Make.com, you have a specific functionality. If you go on the right-hand side, at the top corner, right corner, to the date and time tab, over here you have functionality or a function in Make that is called, let me just show you this thing, that is called add days, right? What we want to do is we want to send him a follow-up email in 3 days, meaning 3 days from today. So we're going to add 3 days. So I need to put 3 days at the second part of this formula. And the first thing is going to be the date, which is today. So this is what you have here, the variable that is called now. Again, it's under the date and time tab in Make. You're going to click on now. And then as soon as it updates, the due date is going to be plus 3 days from today. I'm going to show you how this works in a second. Now over here, we don't want to due date time. What we want to do, we want to scroll down to the date and time invite last sent, and we want to include the now. And I also down here, I want to make sure I check the advanced settings, and I include a time in custom field date parameters. If you don't do this, it's just going to say today without specifying the time, the exact time. So again, I prefer to check this option at the bottom under the advanced settings. We don't need to do anything for the email address. The call is not scheduled yet, so we don't need to update this one, and this one doesn't need to be updated. So we're going to click on save, and we will save our scenario here. I'm going to go and I'm going to rerun this one more time. Again, I do this every single time when I add this step. So if you added this together with me, make sure to use this run once function and actually retest this. Even though it sends a new email, it doesn't really matter. Again, if I go back here, you can see if I refresh the page, yeah, it sent me a new email, the same exact email. If I go back to Make, it also successfully updated the task. So if I go to my interview with Jamie, you can see that the status or the stage of this task was updated to interview with Jamie invited. And you can see the date and time invite last sent was updated to today, 4:35 p.m. Now, we also mentioned that, for example, we invited that person a week ago, and let's say today is the date for us to follow up with that person. They haven't yet scheduled. What you can do with this Make scenario, if I save it and let me turn this on, I'm going to click on save, right? Make sure that this is turned on so it sends and actually processes all the requests. So if I want to follow up with that person in a week, what I can do, I can just use the same steps. I can click on send. It's going to update the date and time over here to 4:36. Let's just see if that works. And it should also send me the third email. All right, this is how it looks. So this is the new email. In our ClickUp, it updated the value to 4:36 p.m. And again, it says that this interview specific is in the invited stage. Now over here, you can see it says sent, but if I reload the page, it should actually disappear. Sometimes ClickUp does that. Again, it's the cache issues. So if you want to remove that, you can even remove it from here. Or if I were to close this task, go to the board view, you can see that the send option is empty. So sometimes it's annoying. It shows you inside the task that the option is selected. Again, after some time, it's going to disappear. But from here, you can see that the value was removed. And now you can basically repeat this over and over and over again while this date and time is going to get updated. And again, you can send that notification to the person as long as you want it to be sent. So at this point, we have our first automation setup for the system. So now we can automatically invite the person as well as automatically follow up with that person over and over again. And again, until they schedule that session. So the next step for us to set up is to actually understand when the person schedules the session with us, right? That happens inside Calendly. So now we're going to set up automation in Make or scenario in Make that will allow us to trigger this and update our ClickUp tasks accordingly. Now that's going to be relatively simple. The only thing we need to do is we need to go back into our Make. Again, the first scenario that we've just built, you're going to need to make sure you saved it. Again, make sure that you turn it on. We're going to close this and we're going to go and create a new scenario. We're going to create it from scratch. Just click the new, go to scenarios, click new scenario. And over here, instead of using the webhook, now what we will be using is Calendly, right? Because the trigger comes from Calendly. So we can select which events Calendly trigger, which will allow us to trigger every time a new event is scheduled in Calendly. This is exactly what we're looking for. Again, inside the webhooks, if you've never set this up before, you might need to click on add your new connection, which will require you to log into your Calendly account. You don't need to have any paid account as long as I know to be able to set this up and to test this. But over here for the events, we want to make sure we select both invitee created and invitee canceled. This way, we not only can track when the person schedules the session, but in case they cancel it, we can also update our ClickUp task. So this is relatively easy thing to set up at this point of time, and it will help us set things up moving forward. So we're going to select this from the list. Our organization URI is something that you can select from the list. It's most likely one thing available to you, and there is one option for the user URI as well. We're going to click on save. Great. So that's now the new webhook. You don't need to do anything else except for setting it up on make.com. And as soon as you've done this, you can even click on save. Again, let's follow the same best practice and let's just call it make 20, and I will explain. I will say that trigger is Calendly event scheduled / canceled, and the action for us is going to be update ClickUp meeting task. Great. So as simple as that. Now we need to test this. In order to test this, we're going to need to go and actually schedule one of the events. So what I will do is I will click on run once here. I'll go back to my email, and again, you can find that link we sent, or we've actually opened this before, but let's just use that. Again, you're gonna, based on the availability, you're gonna see some of the time slots. Let's just test it with 4 p.m., let's say tomorrow. We're gonna fill this out. Let's say it's Jamie. Again, I'm gonna use the email that works best for me. And by the way, here, nice part is even if the person who is scheduling decides to select a different email address or put the different email address here, that's not going to break anything. Because again, we're basically searching for our ClickUp tasks using the ID of the task rather than the email. So again, whatever email they provide here, whatever works best for them, it's not going to break the automation, which is a cool part. So I provided my details. I'm going to schedule the event. Now, as soon as I do this, I'm going to go back to my make. And you can see now we have our new trigger, right? So it gives us the information about who scheduled. This is their email. You can see the event ID. I can also go, if I go to my events, I think if I go to my meetings, it should be available there, right? So Now, so these are actually all my private meetings. I think the 27th, let me actually reload the page. But the event should be somewhere in here. It just doesn't show. Maybe I selected a different time, but it doesn't matter in Calendly. As long as you receive notification here inside Make, that should work. So again, it gives you all the information that you need. And the important part here is that when you click on tracking, so if you scroll to the very bottom, you click on tracking, here you have UTM term, which specifies what is the task from where this invitation is coming from, which is extremely important. So now what we're going to do is first of all, we need to save this. We're going to go and we're going to add the second step. Second step here will be our ClickUp, right? So this will be added the task with a custom field. So instead of getting a task, we're going to straight away update the ClickUp task to mention or to update the custom fields for when the session is scheduled or the interview is scheduled. Again, it's going to ask you for all the same steps. So like the space, the folder, the list, and then it's going to allow us to update the custom field. As we did previously, we're going to check this map option here, and we're going to put the task ID, which comes from the UTM term. Now, if you don't see it for like this, just type it in here. You can say UTM term, and it's going to pop up like this. You're going to click on it, and it's going to populate this value here. Perfect. We don't need to change the task name. We don't need to change SINE at this point of time. We want to change the status because if the person scheduled that event, we want to move it from invited into scheduled. So I'm going to put it here. I'm going to also put the due date to be the actual start of the meeting, right? So over here, if I clear this, I'm going to put and search for start time. This is how Calendly describes this. Now, by the way, if you are using a different scheduling tool and you're following the steps, you're going to probably be able to find the same date when the meeting starts throughout this field right here, right? You just need to look through them. For example, here it says you can see end time. You can even see the start time here, the status. So all of these things are available in here. And again, if it's just a different application, you'll be able to find that date there. With the due date, we want to make sure that we're also adding the time because we're time sensitive here. Like the meeting can be tomorrow, but it really matters if it's at 9 a.m. or at 10 p.m. Over here, I'm going to scroll down. And the date and time invite last sent, we don't need to update that. We're going to need to update the date and time scheduled. And this is going to be, again, the start date, right? Or it says start time here. We're going to put it right here. Make sure that you check the advanced settings, and you also include a time in custom field date parameters here, because otherwise it's just going to say tomorrow instead of tomorrow 9 a.m. So that's pretty important here. We're going to click on save. Perfect. So now what we want to do is we want to rerun this, and we want to say, let's see how the ClickUp task gets updated. I will just rerun this. Again, the same thing, clicking the arrow here, selecting the scenario run that you previously had, and then just clicking on run once. Go back to your ClickUp. Here we go. So now we have our meeting or interview moved from invited into scheduled. Again, that happened automatically. And you can see over here in the date and time scheduled, it actually tomorrow 4 p.m., the same as the due date for this task. Perfect. Now, again, this works. So this is basically ready to go. I'm going to save this. The additional piece and the additional component that we want to add here is, what if someone cancels the invite, right? They schedule the time, let's say it doesn't work anymore. They're gonna cancel it. What happens then? We need to process that. So what we will do is we will basically duplicate this. So I'm gonna click on this module, duplicate it, and I'm going to connect it to my Calendly as well. So this way it creates this router automatically, which can, again, you have basically a fork. Basically the first option, if the call is scheduled or the interview is scheduled, the other option is if the interview is canceled. Now we need to set up those filters, obviously, but again, this will allow us to process both examples and both use cases. The first filter that I want to do as we build this is to make sure that the Calendly invitations, when they come through, they actually have this UTM term, which is the task ID. If they don't have the UTM term with the task ID, it's most likely it's not coming from ClickUp, and we don't want to process that because this will cause some issues for us. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up the filter, and again, under the condition, you just type in your UTM term, which is the field over here. You click on it and make sure that you click on exists, right? So if the UTM term exists, then we can move forward with the rest. You can even label it, and you can say UTM term exists. This way it even gives you some visual. So now we have this fork here. The first option, as we said, this is when the call is scheduled. So how do we differentiate this? Let's just open and see. We're gonna find one of the status fields or something similar to that, which is actually here, which says status is active, which means when you schedule a session, the status of the Calendly invite or the Calendly meeting is active. When you cancel it, it probably goes into canceled. So I'm gonna go into status, I'm gonna click on status. So when status equal to exactly what you have in here, I'm just gonna type in here active, right? And I'm gonna type in here active as well. Then we want to go and update our task, as we mentioned here, to the status scheduled, and we also want to update the due date to the date and time of the meeting. Now, what happens if the call is canceled, right? In this example, I don't want to update the status to scheduled. I want the status to be updated to canceled, and I want my due date to be, instead of the start time of the event, because it's already canceled, I want it to be now, so that I know I have to pay attention to this task. So let's go to date and time, select the now, and just put it in here. Again, you just need to click on it. Over here, we don't need to use due date time, so just check to no. And if we scroll down, again, this start time is going to be relevant. So we're going to remove this from here, and what we actually can do, we can go here into this general functions, and we can use the null function or null variable, which is basically an empty variable, and it will remove the previous date and time of the meeting. So again, it doesn't confuse us. So this is the updated version, and I'm going to actually click this to no. We don't need this anymore because we're not filling it out here. I'm going to click on save. And again, we set up the filter for active. Let's now set up filter for canceled. But in order for us to understand what that canceled status actually is, let's unlink this for a second. Click on run once, and let's go and cancel the invite. So we're going to go back to my inbox. We're going to go to my invitation that I received, right, as Jamie, and I'm going to click on no, which means I'm canceling or declining this invitation. So if I go back to my Calendly or to make.com over here, it should actually trigger this module here. Here we go. And it should give us a specific status, which is called canceled, right? So you can see the status now is canceled. It's not active anymore. This is how we determined which filter we're going to put in here. So now we're going to just tap in the condition, and we're going to say the status, here we go, the status of this has to be canceled. And I'm going to just use the same value in here. Right, you're going to click on save, and we just need to make sure we save this. Again, make sure that the canceled path also works. We're going to go ahead and retest the previous canceled trigger. We're going to click on run once, and it should go down here. It should not go up here. You can see 0. It didn't go here because it didn't pass the filter. It went here because it passed the filter, and it completed this module here where we updated the status of the task to canceled. Let's just refresh this page. So now our task should go here, and the due date is now updated to today. So I know I need to pay attention to this task. And again, I can go ahead, I can send that invitation one more time, reusing the previous automation that we built. By the way, let's actually go and do this. So let's go and click on send. Let's see what happens. It should move that back to invited, right? So if I were to refresh, here we go. It moved it back to invited. And now again, it goes through the same process one more time over and over again. So basically these two make scenarios that we built, make 20 and make 10, now support this whole system and all these functionalities of you sending the invitation, following up with people, and when they schedule or canceling, you actually have this updated inside your ClickUp list as well. Now, obviously, if the session was successful, we want to move this to completed. And by the way, you can add it and actually practice this on your own. As soon as you move that task to the complete status, you can even send a follow-up email saying thank you for your time during this interview session, right? And again, you can follow the same steps by creating a new trigger in ClickUp, just the same way we did for the first make automation, and then creating a new make automation that will actually send that Gmail email to that person, thank you email, and then it might also update your ClickUp task accordingly. By the way, if you don't want to update the ClickUp task in any way at this very last step, you might as well be able to set it up inside ClickUp. You can just go ahead, create a new automation, and from here there is an option to send a Gmail email. It might not be this robust, but you can see the email, send email, and you can connect your email straight in ClickUp. And just to practice this with Make, you can also do this with Make. I like doing it with Make more, whatever makes more sense to you. At this point, we're basically done. So we've set up our ClickUp structure, right? So we have this single source of truth platform in place. We've also set up 2 Make scenarios, which basically send and resend our invitation to the meeting. And by the way, if you want to use Outlook instead of Gmail or any other email provider, feel free to use that in here. And we've also set up Make 20, which again reacts or processes all the events that are happening in Calendly, whether it's new scheduled event or maybe it's someone canceled an event. Again, that's going to be processed and updated inside our ClickUp platform here. Now, obviously, there are some modifications that you can do along the way. I would try to build this system from scratch, just following in the steps that we just followed. If you want to update them and make them used for your specific use case, you can play around, update the Make scenarios, update your ClickUp structure, because obviously this is not the only way you can structure it, right? And again, make it work for your specific use case. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or you faced any technical issues during setting this up, or maybe you have some questions of how to adjust this system to make it work for your specific use case and for your business, feel free to post the comments down below. I also have a link down below in the description to this video for more helpful resources to help you build this automated ClickUp systems for your business. And I hope to see you in the next video very, very soon.